In 2025, Donald Trump didn't just return to the world stage, he signed a record-shattering trillion-dollar partnership with Saudi Arabia. From $142 billion in weapons to $600 billion in energy and tech investments, the deal has been called the most lucrative pact in modern history. Stay until the end, because we'll reveal how one single agreement could fund both Wall Street's future and Saudi Arabia's global expansion for decades. Historic return and $600 billion commitment. When Donald Trump stepped off Air Force One in Riyadh in May 2025, the spectacle was unlike anything the region had seen before. Red carpets stretched across the tarmac, Saudi jets performed flyovers, and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman greeted him with a ceremonial embrace. But behind the pageantry was a deal that stunned financial markets: a $600 billion Saudi commitment to the United States. This wasn't just another trade agreement, it was an empire-level pact spanning energy, infrastructure, defense and technology. The announcement included tens of billions for next-generation AI data centers, where companies like Oracle and Google were highlighted as strategic partners. Energy infrastructure investments promised upgrades to pipelines, refineries and renewable projects on American soil, signaling that Saudi oil wealth was now financing the US transition to high-tech power grids. Defense formed another massive pillar. Beyond the $142 billion weapons package signed alongside it, Saudi Arabia pledged to co-invest in new military research, ensuring US contractors like Lockheed Martin, Boeing and Raytheon stood to earn multi-billion-dollar profits. Executives called it a once-in-a-generation opportunity as stock prices surged in the wake of the announcement. Infrastructure was equally ambitious. The Saudis agreed to fund new airports, advanced seaports, and highways across America, a move Trump hailed as the biggest job creator in modern history. Luxury also played its role. The deal was celebrated at a gala inside Riyadh's opulent Al Yamama Palace, where guests dined under crystal chandeliers valued at over $2 million each, a reminder of the wealth driving this new partnership. For Trump, this was more than policy, it was legacy. He stood beside MBS, declaring it a trillion-dollar friendship, cementing his return to the world stage not just as a politician, but as a deal-maker, rewriting the global order. Markets trembled, rivals watched, and allies recalibrated their strategies. This $600 billion promise was just the beginning. What do you think will matter more in the long run, the defense billions, the AI revolution, or the luxury ties binding Trump and Saudi Arabia together? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Record arms deal, $142 billion defense package. The $600 billion economic commitment announced in Riyadh was groundbreaking, but the most immediate shock came from a defense agreement valued at $142 billion, hailed as the largest arms sale in modern history. It was not just a contract, it was a declaration of how deeply intertwined American military power and Saudi strategic ambitions had become under Donald Trump's second term. The package was expansive in scope. At its heart were air and missile defense systems, including orders for Lockheed Martin's THAAD interceptors, each system costing close to $800 million, alongside upgraded Patriot batteries designed to shield Saudi cities and oil facilities. Advanced F-15 fighter jets, modernized with the latest avionics and weapons systems, represented billions in revenue for Boeing, while Raytheon secured contracts for precision-guided munitions and coastal defense technology. Beyond the skies, the agreement funded a sweeping modernization of Saudi land forces. New Abrams tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, and surveillance drones were added to the kingdom's arsenal, reshaping its ground capabilities. Border and coastal security packages promised integrated radar networks, unmanned aerial vehicles, and advanced communication systems, all coordinated with US contractors to create a layered shield around the Gulf states' vulnerable entry points. For the defense industry, the deal was a windfall. Executives from Lockheed Martin, Boeing and Raytheon saw stock valuations surge within hours of the announcement. Industry analysts estimated that the Saudi orders alone would generate hundreds of thousands of US jobs across states like Texas, Arizona and Missouri, further strengthening Trump's narrative of military sales as both a strategic and economic victory. The pageantry surrounding the signing matched the size of the agreement. Trump and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman stood together in Riyadh's gilded halls, where chandeliers worth millions reflected the grandeur of the moment. Behind the optics was a message. This partnership was designed to last decades, binding American industry to Saudi defense and embedding Trump's image as the deal-maker who secured the largest weapons sale in history. What made this moment striking was its dual purpose. It was about security, but also about wealth. defense dollars flowing into American corporations while cementing Saudi Arabia's position as one of the most heavily armed nations in the Middle East. The $142 billion figure was not just a number, it symbolized the merging of geopolitics, luxury, and business at a scale rarely seen before. Tech and infrastructure building the Saudi-US future. While the defense pact captured headlines, the equally transformative piece of the Trump-Saudi 2025 agreement was a colossal wave of technology and infrastructure investments designed to reshape both nations. Valued at hundreds of billions of dollars, this segment of the deal was framed not just as an economic arrangement, but as the blueprint of a new global order built on artificial intelligence, advanced logistics, and critical energy networks. At the center were plans for AI data centers, a field now viewed as the oil of the 21st century. Saudi Arabia committed tens of billions to fund facilities in the United States, with partners including DataVault, Oracle, and Google. Each data center, costing between $2 and $5 billion, was designed to process vast amounts of cloud computing power, fueling industries from healthcare to defense simulations. The promise was not only to expand America's tech backbone, but also to ensure that Saudi capital would have a permanent stake in the digital economy. Energy infrastructure was another cornerstone. Investment targeted pipeline expansions, renewable energy grids, and natural gas terminals across Texas and Louisiana, regions already synonymous with U.S. oil wealth. Contracts worth $20–30 billion were earmarked for joint projects involving American energy giants, ensuring that Saudi oil revenue flowed directly into modernizing America's power systems. The scope extended beyond energy and data. Plans were unveiled for airport and seaport upgrades across several U.S. states, with individual projects ranging from $5 billion. The commitment also included mining operations in critical minerals, lithium, cobalt, and rare earth elements essential for batteries and defense electronics. By underwriting these industries, the Saudis positioned themselves not only as suppliers of oil, but as stakeholders in America's next industrial revolution. The grandeur of these announcements was underscored by their presentation. Trump and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman stood before massive digital screens projecting images of futuristic airports, high-speed transport hubs, and sprawling server farms. The symbolism was clear. This was more than diplomacy. It was a declaration that the future of wealth and power would be built on circuits, silicon, and steel, as much as on oil and weapons. The tech and infrastructure commitments thus became the quiet powerhouse of the trillion-dollar deal. Projects less flashy than fighter jets, but potentially more lasting, embedding Saudi investment into the very foundations of American growth for decades. New military packages and drone export shifts. If the $142 billion weapons deal stunned the world, what followed in the months after Trump's Riyadh visit made it clear that the arms partnership was only beginning. Proposals surfaced for over $100 billion in additional military packages, introducing a new generation of technology that would embed Saudi Arabia deeper into America's defense industrial base. Central to this expansion were advanced aircraft acquisitions. Discussions included upgraded fleets of F-15X fighter jets, each priced at nearly $90 million, alongside potential access to next-generation drones capable of long-range surveillance and strike missions. The crown jewel was the debate over easing restrictions on the export of MQ-9 Reaper drones, a platform valued at around $32 million per unit. This shift required a reinterpretation of the 1987 Missile Technology Control Regime, a policy move that signaled Washington's willingness to rewrite rules for the sake of a lucrative alliance. Missile defense also featured prominently. Raytheon stood poised to supply new Patriot and THAAD interceptors, with individual interceptor missiles costing several $1 million each. These systems were designed not only to shield Saudi oil infrastructure, but also to project the kingdom's image as a fortress amid regional instability. Boeing and Lockheed Martin executives reportedly celebrated the deals with closed-door receptions, noting that contracts of this magnitude could sustain tens of thousands of American jobs across multiple states. For Saudi Arabia, the shopping list extended beyond weapons. It was about prestige. Each MQ-9 drone, each missile defense battery symbolized not just protection, but power. Reports circulated of lavish dinners in Riyadh, where defense executives dined beneath chandeliers worth over $1 million, sealing agreements that would ripple across global markets. The political theater was equally striking. Trump framed the packages as proof of his ability to deliver record-breaking contracts, while Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman presented them as a cornerstone of Vision 2030. Together, they positioned the agreements as both economic stimulus and geopolitical leverage. These new packages blurred the line between defense and business, reinforcing that in the 21st century, national security could be measured not only by armies, but by the billions flowing through corporate balance sheets. Which part of this defense empire do you think will leave the biggest mark? The fighter jets, the drones, or the missile shields? Share your view in the comments. Sanctions, diplomacy, and regional realignment. While the trillion-dollar deals captured the spotlight, the most delicate part of Trump's 2025 Saudi visit unfolded in private conference rooms, far from the cameras. Diplomacy, often measured in handshakes and policy shifts, became another stage for wealth and power. Here, Trump unveiled a controversial move, easing certain US sanctions on Syria after a meeting with the country's new leadership. The announcement was couched in terms of humanitarian relief and regional stability, but behind it was strategy. Lifting restrictions opened pathways for Saudi-backed reconstruction projects in Damascus, where contracts valued in the $10 billion are waiting to be awarded. Construction firms tied to Saudi Arabia's public investment fund quickly positioned themselves for bids to rebuild infrastructure, airports, highways, and energy grids. American companies too eyed potential contracts, with brands like Bechtel and Halliburton discreetly mentioned as likely participants. Trump's message extended beyond Syria. With Iran, he struck a careful balance, offering cooperation under specific conditions. Analysts pointed to potential joint ventures in oil and shipping, a sector where Saudi Aramco already commands a $2 trillion valuation and global influence. Trump emphasized that U.S. energy giants such as ExxonMobil and Chevron could stand to benefit if stability in the Gulf unlocked new projects. The symbolism was not lost. At a dinner in Riyadh's Ritz-Carlton, under chandeliers worth $3 million each, diplomats and executives mingled. Discussions flowed about corridors linking Gulf capitals to the Levant, about pipelines carrying crude and natural gas to Europe, and about the financial systems that would funnel Saudi and American wealth through Swiss banks and offshore trusts. The regional picture shifted almost overnight. Gulf states welcomed the new American posture as validation of their leadership in shaping Middle Eastern affairs. Syria, long isolated, suddenly appeared on the threshold of reintegration, and Iran, despite decades of hostility, found itself drawn into discussions about trade, energy, and conditional normalization. For Trump, the diplomatic maneuvers were not abstract. They were part of the same empire of deals he had just signed. Sanctions relief was currency, alliances were assets, and the realignment of the Middle East was written not only in communiques, but in multi-billion-dollar contracts and luxury settings, where power was displayed as much as negotiated. Trump and Saudi lifestyle and access. If the trillion-dollar announcement spoke to policy, the lifestyle displays surrounding Trump's 2025 visit revealed the personal side of power. Lavish galas, glittering banquets, and quiet negotiations carried out under chandeliers worth more than most homes. Riyadh was transformed into a stage for both politics and wealth, with every detail carefully curated to showcase Saudi Arabia's ability to host leaders in opulence. The most talked-about reception took place inside the gilded halls of Al Yamamah Palace, where Trump and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman dined alongside global business elites. Guests were served delicacies flown in from Europe, and the crystal settings alone were valued at over $1 million. Wines, rare teas, and caviar filled the tables, though more striking was the guest list. Executives from defense, tech, and energy firms who stood to profit directly from the newly signed agreements. Trump was also given access to exclusive private gatherings, away from television cameras. One meeting at the Ritz-Carlton Riyadh included fewer than 30 participants, but among them were billionaires connected to the Saudi Public Investment Fund. Discussions reportedly centered on future joint ventures in luxury real estate and sports, with figures floated in the range of $10–20 billion. The Ritz itself was a symbol. Famously repurposed during earlier Saudi crackdowns, it has since become a showcase for foreign dignitaries and global financiers. Luxury gifts also came under scrutiny. Reports surfaced of a proposed private jet, potentially worth $50 million, offered by Qatari intermediaries as part of regional diplomatic gestures. While the legality of such gifts raised questions, the symbolism was undeniable. Leaders in the Gulf were willing to translate diplomacy directly into assets that represented status and mobility. Even the settings for business blended with extravagance. Golf tournaments hosted at Trump-branded courses, with Saudi sponsorships exceeding $25 million, became backdrops for informal talks between executives and political figures. Aboard MBS's $500 million yacht Serene, conversations extended late into the night, underscoring how luxury spaces doubled as boardrooms for billion-dollar decisions. In the end, Trump's access in Riyadh was more than ceremonial. It was an immersion into the inner sanctum of Saudi wealth, palaces, hotels, yachts, and private jets, where the dividing line between lifestyle and politics seemed to vanish, and where every meal, venue, and handshake carried a price tag measured in millions. Hidden network and business interests. Behind the headline-grabbing announcements of defense contracts and infrastructure investments lay a quieter but equally powerful story: the hidden financial networks binding Trump's circle to Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, or PIF, a sovereign wealth engine controlling assets estimated at over $700 billion. This fund, chaired by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, has become the centerpiece of Riyadh's global strategy, channeling billions into projects that blur the line between diplomacy and private business. One of the most closely watched deals involved PIF's continued expansion into American technology. Partnerships with Silicon Valley giants, including investments in companies like Uber and rumored talks with AI startups valued in the tens of billions, revealed how Saudi money was embedding itself in the architecture of America's digital economy. At exclusive dinners in Riyadh and New York, venture capital leaders shared tables with Trump allies, where conversations about innovation often overlapped with politics. Real estate formed another link. Reports pointed to exploratory discussions about Saudi-backed funding for luxury towers carrying the Trump name, particularly in Miami and New Jersey. Even without finalized contracts, the symbolic overlap was striking. Riyadh's oil wealth funneled into skyscrapers designed as monuments of prestige. Comparable projects in global hubs such as Dubai, where PIF-backed firms financed developments costing upwards of $2 billion, underscored the scale of capital available. Sports and leisure also became financial crossroads. The Saudi-backed Live Golf Tour, with sponsorships exceeding $25 million at Trump-branded courses, was not only a cultural disruption to professional golf, but also a financial pipeline. Luxury hospitality packages tied to these tournaments, priced at tens of thousands of dollars per guest, ensured that business and politics were carried out over champagne receptions and exclusive tee-offs. What made these networks significant was not just their dollar value, but their discretion. Many deals were structured through offshore holdings in jurisdictions like the Cayman Islands or Luxembourg, allowing both sides plausible deniability. Yet the overlap was clear. Sovereign wealth, private corporations, and political influence converged in a system where access itself was the most valuable currency. This hidden network, palaces, private jets, data centers, golf courses, and glass towers, showed how power in 2025 was rarely exercised in public. Instead, it moved through balance sheets, boardrooms, and investment funds, where billions shifted quietly and alliances were sealed with luxury as much as with law. Long-term implications: power, influence, and investment. The $600 billion pact signed in Riyadh was not just about immediate contracts. It was a signal of what the next decade of US-Saudi relations would look like. For Trump, the agreement became a cornerstone of his promise to bring jobs and investment back to American soil. Analysts projected that defense and infrastructure contracts alone could sustain hundreds of thousands of jobs, with companies like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Oracle, and ExxonMobil standing to receive the largest shares of revenue. The economic scope reached far beyond numbers on a balance sheet. Billions in Saudi capital earmarked for US airports, seaports, and data centers meant visible transformation in American cities. Projects valued at $10–20 billion each were announced for technology hubs in Texas, California, and Virginia, blending oil wealth with Silicon Valley innovation. For states hit hardest by industrial decline, the message was clear: Riyadh's money could finance a second industrial revolution on US soil. On the geopolitical stage, the pact recalibrated the Middle East. Saudi Arabia's growing arsenal, combined with access to American tech and energy partnerships, shifted alliances. The Yemen conflict, Iran's sanctions, and Gulf rivalries were now viewed through the lens of trillion-dollar interdependence. In Washington, policy insiders noted that Trump's alignment with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman created a power block anchored by oil, weapons, and digital infrastructure. Even luxury played its part. The gala dinners, private yacht meetings, and golf tournaments were more than social gatherings. They were symbols of how wealth and diplomacy intertwined. Each chandelier, worth over $1 million, each private jet deal valued in the tens of millions, underscored the role of status in sealing agreements that spanned continents. The pact was more than history, it was a blueprint for the future. But what do you think will define this empire's legacy most? The jobs created in America, the tech revolution it fuels, or the geopolitical power it secures? Share your thoughts in the comments. The trillion-dollar deal between Donald Trump and Saudi Arabia is more than contracts. It's a blueprint for reshaping global power, from advanced defense systems and AI infrastructure to oil wealth and private luxury. This agreement links Washington and Riyadh in ways that will impact jobs, markets, and geopolitics for years to come. But this is only the beginning. Future deals are already in motion, promising even greater surprises. Don't miss what comes next. Hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments on which part of this trillion-dollar empire shocked you the most.